ta tim tim ta ta tim ta ka ta ki ta tim ta tim tim ta ta tim ta ka ta ki ta
Okay, so the first thing we want to understand about the way that I've notated this composition is that it's grouped into three sections, A, B, and C. Each section has 8 bars of 4/4 time. Within each section, there's a top half of 4 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a bottom half of 4 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've called the bottom half in each case A1, B1, and C1, just to differentiate it from the top half of A, B, and C. Each 4-bar section corresponds to 8 beats of MANJUNATH's hand count. He's beating a double beat hand count. He beats 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and. Each of these 4-bar sections corresponds to one complete 8-beat cycle of MANJUNATH's hand count. The whole thing is in 4/4 time, the way that I've notated it, and subdivided at the quintuplet rate. They're the fundamentals. They're the basic things to know about the way that I've notated it. The next thing to understand, for me anyway, is that the top half of A and the top half of B and the top half of C contain this yellow, red, pink and blue phrase. It's the same in B, yellow, red, pink and blue, and the same in C, yellow, red, pink and blue. You'll notice that it contracts in B and it contracts further in C. It's rhythmically contracting each time it reappears. And the top half of A, B and C contains the identical conical syllables. The only difference is that they are being rhythmically contracted in B and then again in C. So it's being squeezed up together. They're the first things to know. So before we go any further and we examine the bottom half of A1, B1 and C1, let's examine the top half of A, B and C separately. And just for the record, these are the conical syllables for the yellow, red, pink and blue phrase. They are identical in letter A and letter B and letter C, but they occupy progressively less and less rhythmic space. And you can see this really easily when we compare them together. When we put the A, B and C versions side by side, you can see that the first time the phrase appears, it occupies a certain amount of rhythmic space, 4 bars plus 1 beat. And then in letter B, it occupies less space. You can see it visually, it's shorter, and rhythmically it's shorter. And then letter C, it's shorter again. Here we can see the yellow phrase, the red pink phrase, and the blue phrase as they appear in letters A, B and C respectively. Let's start by listening to the 3 versions of the yellow phrase so we can hear what each one sounds like in isolation and get a feel for how long it is in relation to the others. Okay, so now let's do the same thing for the 3 versions of the red-pink phrase. And now let's hear the 3 versions of the blue phrase. So now that we know what the 3 versions of the yellow phrase, the 3 versions of the red-pink phrase, and the 3 versions of the blue phrase sound like individually, let's put them together back in context and hear the top half of letter A, the top half of letter B, and the top half of letter C in sequence. Okay, so now that we've heard the 3 versions of this yellow, red, pink, blue phrase, we can move on and examine the bottom half of A, the bottom half of B, and the bottom half of C. Section A1 is comprised of these 15s. They're 3-beat figures. This is pretty straightforward. Everything resolves to 1 beat. Let's hear what they sound like. Now let's hear them in context. Section A1. Section B1 is comprised of 7s, 2 different kinds. This one, this one. The sevens, which come in sets of 3, are interspersed with this 12 phrase. Let's hear that. Now that we've heard what the two different kinds of sevens and the 12 phrase sound like individually, let's put them in context and hear the whole of section B1. As you can see from the notation, the sequence starts 2 beats before the beginning of B1. The sequence is 7-7-7-12, 7-7-7-12, 7-7-7. Section C1 is comprised of 9s. There are 3 different kinds. Let's hear the first one. Here's the second. Here's the third. Now let's hear the 9s in context. I'll play the whole of section C1. Again, as you can see from the notation, the cycle begins a full bar before the start of section C1. The sequence is 9-9-9-9, 9-9-9-9, and 9-9-9 to finish. Here are the conical syllables for part 2. These identical syllables are repeated in 9 cycles. Each cycle, as I've notated it, is 4 bars of 4/4 time, which corresponds to one complete 8-beat cycle of MANJUNATH's hand count. The whole thing is at 100 beats per minute, and in the following demonstration, I'll be accompanying the conical with a simple backbeat drum groove. As with most backbeat drumming, everything in the following example is organized into groupings of 4 notes. As the groupings of 4 notes move through the different rate changes of subdivision, you get this sensation of slowing down and speeding up. The rate changes that accomplish this expansion and contraction of time are highlighted on the notation and the lyrics. The sections based on a framework of 16th notes are highlighted in blue. The 8th note triplet framework is highlighted in grey, and the 16th note triplet framework is highlighted in green. You'll notice that the number of rhythmic subdivisions always adds up to 64, and the groupings for this are indicated on the notation. The corresponding graphic for the conical syllables is highlighted in the same colours, so that you can see as well as hear this expansion and contraction of time.
tati takita tum, tati